I want to thank you all for making the time today to come together and with an open mind and focus on what we can do to improve the health and well-being of our community. I'm Adam Stanczyk. I wanted to just point out the guiding principles and key practices as a reminder of the work and vision and expectations around how we treat each other and how we support each other. We've seen that in a while, and it was included in the last notes specific to the community police. I thought it was a great reminder around that. So, can you barely see it? I'll need to expand that and move it up a little bit. So, want to get started with the introduction of new attendees. Any new attendees that would like to introduce themselves? And do we believe we have a microphone? We can get your way. You stand up.
My name is Doug Babbitt, and I'm just an interested citizen.
Great to have you. Welcome. Anyone else today?
Vanessa, I don't feel navigator.
Welcome, Vanessa. Nice to have you here. Wonderful. So anybody that isn't on the listserv, I do want to let you know that we've got the sign-up sheet in the back table there. So make sure that you sign up as well. And we'll get started with Mayor Dunges and his remarks.
Good afternoon. First off, I'll apologize that as soon as I'm done, I have to run out to another meeting. But I did want to kind of give an update. The last few meetings I've been talking about an event day for people exiting the housing program at the hotels. With those programs coming to an end, I know that the legislature is kind of always in discussion if the money is not right now. There's pressure to some money not out to extend the program. But we're still kind of planning on that June 30 at the end date. With that happening, I've secured the fairgrounds to do a 1.5 day event that will, I can bring it a little closer. Yeah. A 1.5 day event that will allow resources from the community to be on site to have the people exiting the program accessible. So just save the day right now, 13th, 14th, and 15th of June. We'll send something on the holster once we get everything locked in and then some more information. 13th is probably setup day, 14th will be a full day, 15th will be a half day to basically have programs that are not accessible. A couple other things going on in the city. We did a Montpelier visit. Adam was kind enough to get me in front of his, in his other capacity, his directors, and it was a great conversation about where the challenges are, what the limitations of the state actually are, and what we can do to work together. So there's going to be future conversations there that try to bring more resources to Rutland from both the DCF side and throughout the state. And then the only other piece that I think is important to really highlight is, I mentioned it last time too, the ad hoc housing committee that has been meeting every 2 weeks. We've been really focused on how to bring more housing to Rutland. Joe and Scott, try to bring us a little closer. Yeah. Is that good? Okay, good. All right, so the ad hoc housing committee, we've been really focused on how to bring more housing to Rutland, whether that's new development or renovation. Mike Pichek announced that 10% for Vermont last month, which is a loan program and very low interest rates for developers that want to do that. We actually have 5 programs that we know of in the region that are going to apply for that, which is fantastic. So with those 5 programs, we're looking at, somewhere to the tune of, I think it's 30-ish units just in the Rutland area alone, and then additional units in Castleton. Not that we'll get all of that, but just be aware that there is starting to be this movement towards new development and growth of housing in the community on top of what was already happening. So that's it. Any questions?
I probably have talked about this. Could you just reiterate what you're hoping to accomplish on the event date? Should we, if we run into people who might need services, is there, is there something that we can give them or tell them about?
So the idea originally, and thanks for that, Elise. The idea is to have both services, employers, landlords, And then, you know, food services and whatnot, they're on site. So that people that are exiting the program can come, walk around, talk to the different agencies. They can talk to the Housing Trust, the Housing Authority, homeless prevention, you know, Rutland Mental Health, whoever is available to be there. And I really hope you all can be there to have a conversation about the resources that they need as individuals or as families, right? And how they get access to those. So we're asking agencies to come to the table with what they have available, but also be realistic about what you don't. Right. So when I talked to Kevin Loso, Kevin says I have a 2-year waiting list. But that's good to have that realism in place, saying we can put you on a waiting list, but unless something changes, we may not have more space. However, I was at the Gina Cole's office the other day, and they do have apartments available. And if you go through the process with homeless prevention, they're willing to bring you right in and start putting your apartment. So it's trying to translate what that process is, what's available in that process, and how we can get people from the hotel program into more permanent housing. Does that make sense?
That makes, that sounds like it's going to be more of a conference than it is going to be for, in other words, the people from hotels are not going to be coming there and finding out.
No, this is people from the hotels coming to the site. There'll be multiple tables. And also, you know, at least I can send you an email too, but there'll be multiple tables. Every agency will have a table and we'll be able to talk about the resources. So like you'll be able to say, oh, you know what, I hear that you're looking for additional food services, go over here and talk to, you know, this resource team and we'll be able to get you that. Or if they have a conversation with someone else and says, well, I don't have a place to live and all my family's here in Rutland, say, okay, maybe you can go talk to, you know, Dave Gina Cole and he can help you find an apartment that's available. The idea is that everybody's in the same place and we can just point across the island and say, this is where you can go find some.
We're going to have people that are there, greeting people that can, you know, direct them to the various agencies.
Absolutely. And we'll have food too. That's Rich?
Good afternoon, Mayor Douglas. In regards to the housing that you're discussing, do you have an idea, family units, 1 to 2 bedroom, cost-wise?
Yeah, so each project's different. I know that there's probably 20 units that are 2-bedroom at least. There's one project that's for senior retirement, and that's over 30 units, right, of single bedroom and 2-bedroom facilities. Housing itself, that's really going to kind of fall on the rental rehab piece. So it depends on who's coming to the table to apply for this one. So one of the pieces is rental rehab rehabilitation, like in a revolving loan fund. That would be for duplexes, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, those types. Is a big mix across the board. You're welcome.
I'm sure this has been discussed to make sure transportation, as transportation and just sort of advertising in the hotels. How is that going to?
Working on it right now. I'd love some help if you're volunteering. No, we're trying to put together those details. Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to say also the continuum of care group might have a lot of information and be able to support some of the logistic pieces.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. Yep.
Elise Headlam. So one of my concerns is that you hear from landlords that people get moved into their apartments and then they trash them. They don't know how to live in apartments. Is there going to be anybody at this event day who can help address how people transition from the hotels into the housing and what kind of expectations the landlords have for them when they move into those apartments?
Yeah, so homeless prevention actually has a program that they run specifically to help people who are first-time renters or even have rented before but might need to understand what the responsibilities of the renter are. And they can help that. They'll be there. I already talked to Angus. They'll be on site and they can sign people up for that program as well, which is great. So that answers the first question. First part of the question. What was the second part?
I think that was it.
Okay, great. Fantastic. All right, good. Thank you. Oh, Rich is going to
I don't want to tie up your whole afternoon, but in the past, in reference to what Lisa's talking about, we have co-partnered with some of the things at Brock to kind of educate people in the maintenance of their operations or their homes. That could be a great onset to people coming in. Maybe we could offer some educational classes to help them show how to maintain their homes or keep their apartments up and maintenance wise. So
That's a fantastic idea.
I wouldn't hold Brock, especially with weatherization and then first that expectation as well. See how that played out.
Great. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Sorry I can't speak in closed session.
Well, just with regards to communication to the hotels, that we do have transitional housing program services that currently go out to the hotels consistently, at least 2 to 3 times a week, along with Brock Housing Navigation. So that connection it's been made, it's established. We have a relationship with the folks in the hotels. We're going to be able to disseminate that information and get those out to folks so they understand kind of what the intent of the larger couple of days means, what it means to them. And I think it's going to be really important for them to understand, like understanding the fact that this program is cycled through several times with this is the last date, this is the last date. The expectation is this is the last date. And so making sure that folks are aware of that, and, you know, have a different opinion on that over the next couple of days. But the idea that that we're communicating that clearly and have viable resources for folks is something that we really want to make sure that that happens. And that's the mayor's on board with that. Sure. I mean, I think it's a good question. I think it really depends on as far as what they're willing to engage with, because it might meet people where they're at. It's a really important part of that process. So encouraging them to engage when they're ready and understanding that they have a better understanding of the resources available within the community. I don't know if it will carry over into an expectation they have to do it in order to receive services. That's something that.
So I'm a landlord, and
I open my apartment up to someone from this program. Is there any way that I'm going to be able to check references and make sure that they aren't bringing drugs and alcohol problems into my apartment?
I mean, they do normal reference checks. I think it's more what we want to encourage is then those landlords understanding the resources that are available in the community to support those individuals, those families. So it's not so much if that's helpful in answering your question. It really does come down to an awareness of the services and then us as service providers and agencies that provide those services engaging with those landlords so that they understand the resources. So they need to properly refer they can, or they can outreach to the different agencies for support.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, most people in the hotel program, maybe not all, but a lot, have case managers within the housing community that are working with them already.
That's
so
correct.
It's not as though these folks are just showing up and having no interaction with any agency whatsoever. So they're getting support. This is just an addition to what they're getting.
There's HMIS through, I think both Brock as well as Homeless Prevention Center do screenings, comprehensive screenings to identify their needs. And provide them. So, wonderful. Chief, thanks for waiting. Wow.
Rich? Well, thanks. Thanks, Adam. So before I forget, Tuesday, the 16th at 5:30, we have our annual award ceremony. And this year it's at Mission City Church on Cold River Road. Refreshments at 5:30, ceremony starts at 6. Up until last year, we were doing that in December, but we to May, which is Police Memorial Week, where officers killed in the line of duty throughout the country are recognized. So we moved our ceremony to that week. So again, Tuesday, 5:30, Mission City Church on Cold River Road. Everyone's welcome. Please stop by. And we'll recognize officers, some of the police what they've done over the course of the year. We'll recognize members of our department for other things like safe driving over the course of the year, or coming to work every day, not being sick, that sort of thing. So with that, for those, who have attended our Rust Belt meetings or police commission meetings or community policing subcommittee meetings, you've probably heard this before, but with our CRS program. As you know, we started our CRS program with Matt as our first CRS last August. Matt came back to us full time in January as a commander. And we hired Kyle Dawson, who was one of our dispatchers. So Kyle's been our CRS since about February or so, I think it was. And we've been looking to expand that with the support of the board, Mayor Laird and now Mayor Dundas. And so we're in the process of transitioning another one of our dispatchers to a CRS position. That'll start next week. Julie Fitzgibbons, if you know Julie, she's actually in a master's program, kind of nearing the end of her master's program in clinical mental health counseling. So that's going to be a real good fit for us. And then we've got a third position that will also be filled. So we'll have essentially three full-time employees in our CRS positions. Right now, that service is really available Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. But we'll be expanding that to about 14 hours a day over about a 7-day period. Just like with policing, we want to be pretty effective when we do some proactive policing, and we want to do the same thing with our CRS position. So if you come to our Rust Belt meetings, you'll hear a number of addresses that we've been to at least 3 times in a 2-week period, and we've identified underlying issues. And we're there because we're getting calls, but we want to be a little more proactive with the CRS positions also. So those addresses that were non-criminal things are bringing us for services, we want to sort of be proactive with the CRSs and knock on the door when we're not getting calls. Hopefully have some better outcomes and potentially connect people with resources they might not otherwise. I might get sick of hearing us knock on the door, so I say, yeah, I'll do it. What do you need? So that's the hope. So by the end of May, we'll have a second one, and soon after, hopefully June, we'll have a third CRS. So that's good news. Again, if you come to our Rust Belt meetings, you'll hear so much of what we respond to has a mental health component. And unfortunately, I think even those in the community who are the experts, who are partners, and really are the ones who we lean on to provide these services, will concede that some cases really are beyond their capacity to treat in a community setting. And it's unfortunate because we say, where are those resources then? If those in the community who are here to provide those resources, and in certain cases are beyond their capacity, then where are those resources? And they don't seem to exist, bottom line. They don't seem to exist. So going forward, I think we really got to have some serious conversations, first locally and then with the state. Because as I said, these services don't seem to exist. We have some really, really difficult cases. Again, what we're trying to do with CRS positions, the calls that we get require a response, not always a police response. And so that's why we created the CRS positions. But we've seen some decisions from courts where they try to sort of suck us back in. It's like the mafia, right? I think you try to get away, they keep bringing you back in. But there was one particular case where the police were specifically named for this one individual in a program that if this person elopes, the police can come take that person into custody. And I weren't the only ones. Our authority really didn't. There was no distinction between our authority and others. But the bottom line is we want to support a response, but we don't want to be the response. And unfortunately, in this case, the police can respond and take this person back. We'd rather do that. We want to support an appropriate response and not be the response. So it's sort of contrary to what we're trying to do. It's as I said, it's a incredibly important resources are really lacking. And I don't know that the state has understood that. I know that, again, speaking with our partners, some of the response they've gotten from the state hasn't, not too reassuring, that they're terribly really identifying the real issue, which is the lack of appropriate resources. So anyway, going forward, that we really have to start focusing on. As I said, so much of what we deal with has some mental health. That, I don't know. That's going to be Tuesday. So,
I'll just add, as far as CRS goes, we've had Kyle come to a couple different meetings. I highly recommend that you invite him to your agency meetings just to talk and give an overview around the work that they're doing and how they can effectively collaborate with your team. I think that's really important. He's been open to I was alluding to earlier, the outreach team to the hotels and supporting that. And I think that it's a great additional resource to the chief's point. Once we make those connections, also having conversations with those other agencies that are in dire need of support around for this population.
that's the end.
And I just want to tap onto the discussion about mental health folks and court orders. Both pretty loud, aren't I? So Vermont has different tracks for mental health folks versus folks with developmental disabilities, or folks with mental health issues that, following a police involvement and a prosecution, are not competent to stand trial, or the legal term, not guilty by reason of insanity. Folks with mental health issues, there is an avenue for them to have hospitalization. For folks with developmental disabilities, there is a separate system that does not currently have a forensic facility. Probably all of us remember the flooding in Waterbury that wiped out the state hospital. Those beds did not come back online. I think it's S89 and S91. Both were attempts this legislative session to try to address the lack of forensic facilities and the real disconnect between having these two related issues that come up in the criminal justice system be dealt with in separate ways. And in my mind, one of the most problematic parts of the developmental disability response is that definitionally, for someone to be eligible for those services, the commissioner has the ability to determine if the person's needs are greater than the resources available to them. You just like slow that down for a quick second. And there is a possibility that somebody who charged with a crime, perhaps engaged in conduct that would be criminal if they were competent to stand trial, has so many needs that the commissioner decides they can't do. And I think those are some of the situations that my office and the police see most frequently as just pervasively problematic. I would love it if that legislation changed, because it would enable us to respond in a way that both keeps the individuals safer and the community safer. And current statute just leaves us in this awful blank space.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ian. The case I referred to actually was a disability case as opposed to a mental health case. But again, beyond the capacity of the designated agency to adequately address. But again, the order will state, that it serves to address the needs of the individual and public safety. And we did have a meeting and said, it's just the needs of the patient or the individual are not our realm, but public safety is. I can tell you that, the order as it exists is not certain public safety needs. So I haven't had much of a response, fortunately. Elise.
I feel like I'm taking over the meeting. I don't mean to do that. Ian, so what happens to the person with developmental disabilities if it's determined that their needs are greater than the resources? Are they just let go? And so they're put back into the community even though they've committed a crime?
They stand trial and they're not eligible. They're not eligible for an order. It's a really bad situation, but it is a feature of our laws as they exist right now. Yeah, I think one takes up a lot of our time.
How would S91 change that?
So the two pieces of legislation contemplated having the option of a locked forensic facility. That only deals with one of them. So that a commissioner, it gives the commissioner more resources, and it means that people who are subject to one of these orders and are really dangerous, right? Really dangerous, that they could be placed in a locked facility for treatment. And that's not going to be every person with a developmental disability. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who have a developmental disability such that they're not competent to stand trial and are engaged in some of the most violent crimes we see. For them, it very much can be appropriate for their safety and for the community to be in the facility. Currently, the last update I heard was that once again is transitioned to a study or study, I guess.
All right, if nothing else, back down. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, I'm gonna move on to announcements. Ellie Shinha, Rava. Ready? Come on up.
So I wanted to make an announcement about a meeting that started a couple of months ago in our building at the Rutland Jewish Center that we're calling Spirituality in Recovery. And this is something I've been thinking about for quite a while. You may have heard that often people say that addiction is a spiritual disease, that there's a spiritual void, it's a disease of the spirit. And oftentimes what happens is people are looking for spirituality, but oftentimes they may substitute that spirituality, that higher power, with their drug of choice. So the way that this meeting has been working is that we're looking at the Bible, and we're looking at stories in the Bible. And right now it's the Jewish Bible, but open to all kinds. That's what my expertise is in. But we're looking at stories in the Bible that are very helpful for help. And the story that I'm using this actually with 12-step slogans. Oftentimes that's what I'm doing. So the example I often use is the slogan, and you may not have ever heard this one, it's a good one. Anger is one letter away from danger. And the story that I used is, of course, the story of the Ten Commandments and Moses coming down the mountain and seeing the golden calf and smashing the tablets. But that would be fine, and people get angry, but that anger doesn't stop there. In fact, it's probably the most angry we see Moses in the Bible. He grinds the calf up into a fine powder and makes people drink it, and he gets people to kill thousands of other folks. And the next day, it's as if nothing happened. He goes back up and tries to. Moses is the guy that's always trying to get God. But in this case, he's so angry. So you look at stories like that. There's also in the Jewish tradition a lot of wisdom from the rabbis that really have a lot to offer. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been meeting once a week. We've been meeting 1 o'clock on Thursdays. We're now moving starting today at 4:30 on Thursdays at the Rutland Jewish Center. So I have a couple of flyers, but maybe the best thing I can do, if anybody wants a flyer, they can take it today, but maybe I'll just send Matt the flyer, and maybe through email, more people can get it. So anyway, that's, I should give you a little bit of a background about me. I became a rabbi in midlife back in 2014, and I had to write a thesis. You have to write a thesis in rabbinical school. And my thesis was on an institution at a place called Beit Teshuvah, which in Hebrew means House of Repentance. And that place is out in California. And it's a residential rehab with a synagogue inside it. And and that was what I wrote my thesis on. Why? Because I was married to an alcoholic for 18 years. And after we split up, he eventually passed away from alcoholism. So, and Joe's been a huge inspiration for me to do this. But my goal in writing my thesis was to create something like that on the East Coast, because there wasn't anything. Now, in fact, that did happen. I was not the one to create it on the East Coast, but there is one now in Queens, in New York. Unfortunately, I think the pandemic had a pretty bad effect on it, so it is closing. But when I wrote my thesis, I understood a lot. I came to understand a lot of things about the spiritual piece. And everybody who goes to Beit Yeshuva has all the traditional kinds of counselors, but they also have a spiritual piece. And even though, I'm not doing it exactly the way I have my own vision of how I could do this, and the stories I think are pretty amazing. And they say in Judaism that the Torah has Torah 5 out of 7 faces, which means that you can see, and in different generations, different times, you can see different things in. And my goal, and what I found right away, was when I needed the help that I needed, was that when I looked at the stories, they were great. So, anyway, I don't know if there are any questions, but that's what I'm trying to do. Yes.
How's your attendance at the meeting?
It's just a couple of people, and I'm trying to figure out how to market it better. I thought this might be a good start, but they're coming back, and they told me they're getting about it. So then I'm also open. I mean, right now I'm the leader, but I'm happy to have anybody who has a story that wants to share from whatever Bible you read, to come in and use that story as well. Whatever. Any other questions? Right. And I'm just gonna put these flyers on this chair right here.
We'll get the electronic copy as well.
Any other announcements?
Any other announcements, folks?
I'll share that we've next meeting is a new safety training. We work around. We will be seeing here amongst that. That's all I
Well, great to have you.
You want to say you want to introduce yourself?
The pressure's on.
The pressure is on. At least you are.
Yeah, hi, I'm Arthur. I've just been here for a couple of days now. So, and yeah, I'm living in downtown Rutland, and so some of the cases I'm seeing come in, I'm also seeing in my walk home. And yeah, so I'm really thankful that there are groups and folks like this who are trying their best to make it a safe place to live. So thank you.
Rebecca?
Thanks, Adam. So just real quick, Matt sent out an email from Habitat probably last week that we are looking currently for a new homeowner for 3 Hickory. We broke ground yesterday, and our application period is closing on June 15th. This is a really quick turnaround from today. We've been open since before May, but we're hoping to have this house finished and a family in it well before Christmas this year. So if you know anyone who might be interested in a Habitat home, please have them reach out to me, okay?
Thanks, Rebecca.
We had mentioned the COC earlier. That meeting is going to be this Thursday unless they cancel it. Thursday at 12 o'clock at the, let's say the Bloomer Building or the government building, as people know it.
Room 266, second floor.
Second floor. Yeah. Thank you, Adam.
So for folks that are aware, that's really the place where the community comes together and we have these discussions around housing, and it's everything from emergency housing, sustainable, transitional, and really talking about needs and identifying those almost mentions that talking about their organizations that have a lot of funding committed to that folks. Okay. So we'll see you there. Mr. Crowley?
Do you want to speak to what we were just talking about before the meeting?
I'll let you do it.
So, he is on the college stuff. Yeah. So, Pat Hunter had challenged me with a book called Rough Sleepers. Look it up, Tracy Hilliard, I believe it's called. Kidder. Yes. Yes, sir. I'm taller than the rabbi.
Everybody's told.
You, Rebecca. I'm sorry. So, just so you guys know, this might be the first meeting in 20 years. Anyway, so I got this book, and it's actually so timely. This book is about a doctor doing basically homeless healthcare starting in 1985 in the greater Boston area. His went to medical school, was working at Mass General, but did this really awesome street work. As part of the book is going to be a group of nurses in a shelter type facility, and his job was to self-feed. And really powerful part of the book. But in light of some things that have been happening locally about, you know, if you take a look at a good part of the folks right now that are maybe not allowed to go to the emergency room for one reason or another, these are folks that are very, very, very challenged that we work with on a daily basis. Are my partners from that's the and it's a whole list of folks that we do life with every day. And I don't believe that sometimes in that crisis, going to the ED, emotions are high, substances on board, it's a recipe for disaster. So that's our problem statement. But that doesn't take away our responsibility as community to provide healthcare to the people that historically are double-digit numbers more likely to die at early age. So, in that thread, we talked about how can we, in Project Vision, not necessarily take the lead on this, but maybe leverage some partners to come up with a system we provide using our abundant resources, because I don't believe in scarcity, abundance. A type of model that's similar, where we leverage the community resource specialists, we leverage our outreach folks from Rock. I know I'm asking you all to do stuff that I haven't asked you that you haven't been briefed on yet. But we're out there doing life, and we meet our client, and we say, is it okay if on a Wednesday night, maybe you meet somewhere in town and we have something to do? From there, we can actually probably schedule a time if there's follow-up that needs to be done at the medical center, or maybe one of our CRSs can accompany that person to the hospital. Now an assessment is done at an appropriate time, maybe without substances on board, with somebody that has developed trust with an individual. And we don't have, and we're keeping our healthcare workers much safer, because that interaction at the ED, I don't want to make light of that. Those folks have a very, very difficult time. And I want to minimize the negative impacts of these very, very confrontational encounters. So how can we do this business in a different way, where we meet people where they're at, get the health assessments that we need, intervene appropriately with our healthcare systems, appointments, and have better outcomes. So did meet with our partners at the free clinic, and we're hoping that we can continue this conversation, find out who we can onboard early. We're not going to get it right away. We're going to have to build it, but I think there's a lot of room here to do something special.
So it's a very exciting prospect, and I'll just add that we've had conversations with the hospital as well and other community partners with the expectation of starting small and building up from there. But I think this is critical as we transition, folks transition out of hotels into homelessness and other address services outside of purview of somebody's home, apartment, or hotel. So thanks again. We do have some additional time. We did want to allot about 20 minutes for subcommittees to meet. So I think, I don't know how we want to do this. We do someone outside or what's the?
Yeah, find a spot,
Okay.
get together.
So I will ask the subcommittee chairs to pick a spot, maybe just one inside. I think we've got plenty of room on couches for the other one. The intention is this to give an update if you have the opportunity to meet with the subcommittees in the monthly meetings, and then some brainstorming and any recommendations as we report out in about 20 minutes. So we'll leave you to that.
Okay.
Chairs, please.
Hey, building great neighborhoods and community policing can be over here. For the folks online, you're going to be in community policing.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Eamon. I'm the state's attorney. I can give you my card.
Yes, please. That would be good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, we're faceless most of the time.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what I say. Yeah, it's always a good thing.
Exactly. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I don't know how. Hey, Chief, you want to transfer?
Might want more space. Oh, no. Okay. All right.
What's up, man?
I was going to have you talk a little bit about what we've been going over in the community policing subcommittee. Actually, Patty, you can do that too, because you're a big part of that. Well, actually, I can do it from here because the folks online here can hear me. So, as you know, before we had, building great neighborhoods, which has kind of dwindled down since COVID. We do want to get that back. The CRSs are going to be a big part of that. And once I get a sergeant in the community response team, that'll be helpful. But some of the things that we are doing that I think is pretty powerful is we're really looking at the overdose response initiative through PARI, which is the police assisted addiction recovery initiative. So the Turning Point Center and the Department of Health sponsored Maureen Kavanaugh coming to the city. What was it, last month, Chief? And she presented at RAS, and she is a mother who has written a book, but she has a daughter who suffers from substance use disorder. She is I think in her 7th year now, maybe, of recovery. But there's a point in time, I think her daughter went to rehab probably over 40 times. And it took a long time before it stuck. And I was just really challenged by her presentation. And she is familiar with the PARI model. She was in Massachusetts, but she connected me with 2 retired chiefs of police, one from, I believe, Chelsea and one from East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, who are part of an organization now called Operation to Save Lives. I think this week they're actually presenting what they do out in Montana. But they're in Massachusetts, I think Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, several other states. But they would like to connect with us here locally, and I think it would be beneficial because they do basically an assessment of the coalition, right? We fill out a survey, pretty comprehensive. And you get basically a scorecard. Like, boy, as a coalition or community, you guys do really good here, here, and here. These are the areas that you stink. You got to do better. Okay. And on top of that, they also have some products, some analytical products that help you measure what you're doing, which is something that we don't do well now. We all have our separate data collection things. Some of it, by their very nature, are confidential and can't be shared, at least not in a timely manner, which we understand that. But like right now, the city police reports out on overdose data, but we report out on our numbers. Those aren't tracking necessarily what comes in through regional ambulance or what the hospital has, or, you know, and usually the state numbers come out quite a bit later. I think that's a fair statement. So we're looking at bringing those folks here to Rutland. They would love to do kind of check out Vision a little bit, see what we're about. When I explain the coalition, I don't think they really grasp, you know, how diverse this this group is, because they're used to working with providers or just the police. But obviously we're a much more diverse group than that. So bring them here. I did provide the community policing subcommittee with sort of a summary of services that this group provides. Some of it even gets into the diversion, you know, pre-arrest type stuff. So that we could even look at, you know, some of that stuff too. I thought, Damon, you'd be really interested. Restorative justice pieces that they have. So that's what we're doing on community policing. The CRSs, as the chief mentioned earlier, we really want to build that program out, because, you know, we look at, since we don't look at so much just since George Floyd, but going back to Ferguson and the commission from President Obama's 21st Century Policing Task Force, we look at, boy, oftentimes we've been pulled into these social issues that we weren't necessarily the best response, but we were around, you know, we're working 24/7, 7 days a week. And so we're oftentimes the default, and we don't want to always be the response when there is a better response. We may provide a response, but not necessarily a police response. So a big goal for us in the next year is, how do we take our folks and really immerse them with all of the partners, so that as we're out there doing our business and we're sending civilians to handle some of these non-criminal calls, that they can be making these referrals to Brock and to HBC and to Rutland Mental Health and whoever might be the appropriate, or several, you know, can we collaborate as a group? We may have to do some empanelment. We may have to get some confidentiality pieces. My CRSs are allowed to have their own levels of confidentiality that they don't share with patrol. They can actually take their cases and make them non-viewable by the other officers. I think that was very important, because, you know, I want people under the bridge to trust the CRSs and not think, hey, we're going to run back and tattle on you and build a case. So that's what's happening in my group. What are your thoughts?
Where do we stand on like the Citizen Academy? It hasn't been brought up in a while.
Yeah, so the Citizen Academy, it's still on the board where Greg wrote it. I think that was really, at least for the conversation I had with Greg, was it had a lot to do with Rutland Patrol, and so I was not super excited to continue that, to be honest with you. I think there's better use of our time. So that's where that's at. But just a second, Richard, but to your point, I do think that we need to I want to open the building up more for people to actually be able to be involved with the relationship building, how things work, why we do what we do, that piece, as compared to, I don't know that the community has a great appetite for people out patrolling on their own. You know, we saw what happened at Home Depot. It's just ripe for liability. I don't necessarily want to put a Project Vision stamp on that.
In reference to Operation Stabilize, once you get that report card and you come up, do they also provide you resources or give you tools to fix what we may not be doing better?
Well, that's what I don't know. They say they have a toolkit, but, you know, we might already have a better one. I don't know. So I'd like to have that assessment done. But what's really cool about it is they're working in a lot of states. So if we have the ability to connect with states that are already doing some of these models, I'm a big believer in field trips. We haven't done any, and I want to. I'd like to go to like Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I believe has had a huge revitalization. We need to go there. What's happening?
I think it's a good idea. Project Vision used to travel states.
Right.
We went and told our story in numerous places in other areas and had a chance to adopt one. I think it's a great idea to be looking into that.
Yep. And this group is still affiliated with PARI, so it's not like this competitive model, which I was a little concerned about in the beginning. It was this is a couple folks going off road doing their own thing, but it's not. They're still all following those same guiding principles, which I think is really important.
Actually grown and developed because I mean, I heard about RE, 7 or 8 years ago.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So have they transitioned from that time?
I'm sure they have, best practice and trends change and yeah. But as far as, curriculum or what they're doing there, I don't know. It's no different than like the drug courts. What was best practice when we started in, I think, 2010 is very different than what we do now. Phases change, all that stuff. And I think, well, yeah.
Sure. So one of the things that I believe is important is trying to have a community of recovery that is guided and structured, that there is a plan to getting people to recovery. In my mind, there are few more powerful public safety tools than people achieving sobriety and a law-abiding life. Treatment court provides a path to that. So since taking office, it's been a priority of mine to get more people into the treatment court, participating in it. Not everybody's going to succeed. I know that, and we have a traditional criminal justice response with usually a significant jail sentence backing it up if people are not successful in treatment court. And there are people who start, do not succeed, cannot get through to them, and there's a route out for them. And that route goes to the jailhouse. For the people who are successful, ideally, I think it's supposed to be about 16 months, maybe 18 months, to get through. Very few people just have pure success from beginning to end. If somebody was that well set up for success, they probably didn't need us in the first place, didn't need the treatment court. So it usually takes closer to 2-ish years for somebody to get through. At that point, there are some really powerful incentives in terms of what happens with their case, but that is kind of worked out case by case, and it usually involves avoiding a prison sentence entirely. Might include dismissal of cases. And actually next, the 23rd, it's not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, we've got a graduation coming up. The number the court had was the 164th graduate of the program since the program began. I think that's all very exciting. So yeah, there's a lot more people in treatment court. We're closing in on 20 participants. There's always a, the tide's coming in while it's going out. There are people who, like I said, try and it doesn't work, but we are trying to have the overall trend to get more people involved in the treatment court so that hopefully they achieve a sober, productive life in the community rather than going into the jails.
Support for treatment court, because I heard at one point the treatment, this was kind of with the COVID stuff that was going on, the treatment court was kind of on the way out.
If I have any say in it, it's not. We were down to, I think, 4 participants in June of 2022. We're up to almost 20. Obviously, a graduation is a good reason for the number to go down. I feel like the city police are extremely supportive. Having Emilio there is force multiplier feels like a weak term for what's actually happening. He's helping people get to treatment. He's helping people connect with jobs if they need jobs, getting to treatment. And one of the more impressive things to, right, like I sit there, there's usually not a lot for us to be doing because it is I don't want to say scripted, but a planned interaction between the judge and the participant during the actual court sessions. But hearing people who have inherently not had great experiences with the criminal justice system because they were prosecuted, right? That's for most people not a life-affirming experience. Talk about their relationships with a specific police officer and how that is a good thing in their life and helping them build that. I think in a lot of ways, that is what we are hoping for in community policing and community response to crimes happening. I'm very optimistic about it. Obviously, I can't control the judiciary's budget, but in terms of support from my office, we're here to support it. We're here to try to make it as meaningful and effective as possible.
Locally too, Judge Lynch, he had a while back was hoping to have 2 weeks, and then there wasn't support in the state for that. It comes down to funding. But again, treatment court is every other Tuesday. 23rd is the next session, and there will be a graduation. But I've seen Pat Hunter there, so it's interesting to come see. Everyone in treatment court comes before the judge, and the judge spends a little bit of time going through, where that participant is at. You'll hear about the interactions over the previous 2 weeks, either with Emilio or someone else on the team. It's kind of neat. And in this case, with the graduation, it's a real success. The community, it's a real benefit. The individual, it was hard work with the individual. You'll see the ultimate success, graduation, and you'll get to appreciate the benefit of the community too. He's gainfully employed in the community, law-abiding. It's everything you want.
What time of day is that?
2:30.
Can I add something to that, Chief? The judge is local as well. He's got to buy in as this as well, because this is his community. Grew up there. He's from this neighborhood. So it's important to see that when people do, even with restorative justice. If you've ever sat on those panels and you've interviewed some of the individuals coming across that have to write a note back, talk about what they're going to do as part of their plan. It's not only from a compassionate side of restorative justice, it's an important fact that they have support surrounding them, saying, "Hey, we believe in you. You just got to put the time and effort into it." So I used to participate on it. I got really busy and got backed up, but it's one of those things that they need more people too. If you've got something you want to volunteer for, that's an excellent place to get involved with. Go through the classes and partake in that. You'll see things you haven't seen before.
Or Jamie, talking about that. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. It's a great idea. It works. So people who want to get engaged, it does work.
Yeah. When people tell you that, so we spend a lot of time counseling our peers in law enforcement about the drug court because there's this perception that somehow it's this, I don't know, warm and fuzzy thing. I'm like, following a participant through drug court with what they have to do, the meetings, this, that, and the other thing, the UAs, it's hard. It is not easy to get through drug court. You will spend more time in jail over the course of drug court. It might be a weekend at a time or a hotel bed date, whatever, but and Amelia, you can attest to this. There's probably more time served during the course of someone's drug court time than it is on a traditional sentence. But what happens during that time is kind of magic. Just about everyone I've seen, the first 2 phases, or maybe in the first year, is like, hey, I'm going to take this deal because I'm going to get my case dismissed. I'm going to just fudge through it. And once my case is dismissed, I'll go back doing life the way I always did. And there's a whole bunch of hiccups. And then they'll tell you at graduation, if I hope you all go, is you'll say, then there was this moment where they like, you know what? Why don't I just try doing what they're telling me to do? And it's amazing. And the relationships that we built, I know I was on the drug court for a couple of years. I still look back at that time very fondly, and I'm jealous a little bit of Emilio who gets to do that now. Is when you get to do life that way with people and see the struggle and then you see the growth and then get to that graduation point, even the ones that sometimes don't make it, that was not time ill spent. You know, that might be the most stable time that they've had for years, was that year and a half of drug court. So think of it that way. And
if it's not taking up too much time, I'll tack on to that thought if I can.
Sure.
There are kind of two models that I see most coming into treatment court being eligible. Either people, so two kind of routes. Either somebody with a bigger charge, like a felony possession, that might be a kind of model for somebody who comes in, or the arrested every day, every week at the shopping plaza, stealing, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of ways to measure success. One of them is recidivism, whether somebody's committing more crimes. Another way of thinking about it is desistance. So whether the magnitude of crimes and the pace of crimes is dropping off, and even people who are struggling in treatment court, struggling to get to treatment providers, almost all, I mean, I've got one particular participant in mind right now. This woman isn't getting arrested every week anymore because she's not committing retail thefts all the time. That is not a complete success, but it is a measure of success. And I think it frees up the police to deal with more serious crimes, and it's a bit of relief for the people who are trying to make a living working in our stores and retail establishments too. That's right. Like, of course, we want complete success, but we've got to recognize where we're making progress, even if it's not.
It's pretty neat to watch. I've been going fairly regularly over the last 6 months or so, maybe a year, but I think the judge tells participants from the beginning, you need to, three things. I think you need to show up, I think participate, and be honest, right? And one of the sanctions is called a jury box, right? And so if you don't comply with your prescriptions for it, right? Your UAs or your different appointments, then there's some sort of sanction. One of the sanctions is called jury box. The judge makes the person being sanctioned watch a treatment court session, I think typically in Chittenden County, and then has to come back and sort of and write something about sort of what they observed. And it's kind of neat because the judge will ask, so what do you think about the excuses that this particular participant gave? And so it's funny to hear that the law courts would say, that was a bunch of crap. They could see through it. So I think it's start, I think going forward, they're not going to have those excuses. They're going to say, basically, I'm going to, and so you start to see a little bit more of that honesty. It's kind of neat how everything progresses through beginning to the end.
Yeah. And it's nice when the judge first starts, he always says, so especially a new participant, they'll ask, like, why are you here? Like, why are you in drug court? And it's pretty amazing. I mean, to me, it's changed me in a lot of ways to kind of see someone go up there and be like, just this person that needs help, right? And you'll hear a lot of the participants say, I want my life back, right? So that's really heavy. I think that's really heavy on a lot of us that sit there and watch it. Ian's always there, and we see it, and we really truly want to help these people. It's not like we're just sitting, like, we're a team, right? And, sometimes we don't always get along. There's lawyers and policemen, and so it's kind of like
good point.
But it's cool because you learn a lot from it, and we are really, every single person there is really totally help trying to wrap around that person and give them all the tools that they need to succeed, right? Because we want to see them be successful. So I think that's like the major, like, okay, this is not just learning how to be a better policeman, but I mean, if we're all working together, we can either see this person succeed or help them succeed a little more in the community. So that's kind of what I think is great. Sometimes I'm like tearing up.
Hey, big softy. So we're all right. Anything for the good of the order before we reconvene the meeting? All right.
I'm really looking for, community advisory board. I think it might have been the Union Employers Organization, but we're looking for people to be part of the.
So I'm mindful of everybody's time. And we want to give people opportunity for the
Hey, Elise.
the floor is yours. Yep. Thanks, everyone. So, Committee Conlon will start us off with the,
Sure.
So I chair our community policing subcommittee. Chief of police is on that, Alicia, you come to that, Patty, you come to that. Anyway, so what we're working on right now, I'll tell you a little bit, is really going to delve into but we're also looking at the overdose response initiative, and I'm pretty excited about that. For those of you, thank you so much, by the way, folks, for bringing it forward, because that was really the catalyst, making that connection with her. He presented a couple weeks ago at RIS. He was able to connect me with a couple of retired police officers from Massachusetts, East Bridgewater specifically, I believe Chelsea, who are doing this work on overdose mitigation across the country. So probably going to bring them to Vermont. They're going to provide us with a tool where the coalition can basically fill out a survey and we can get a scorecard. Okay, we're doing really good here, we're really poor there. Things we need to work on. They suspect, just from looking, Googling project vision, that we're doing pretty well, progress so high, but there are always things to do better. So looking forward to that. What else are we doing already?
Lots of good stuff.
Lots of good stuff. CRS, you've heard about that. I'm talking about the subcommittee, not this is breakout. Okay. So, in the breakout session, we did talk quite a bit about the treatment court, and just asked how that was going. I think it's going very well. 20 participants next on the 23rd is graduation at the criminal court. 9 Merchants Row, 2:30. If you've never been to one, go. It's a pretty cool process to watch. Very. Versus Lewis doing a great job. Anything else, Chief? All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jane Bentley. I am co-chair of the Health Committee for Project Vision, and just to give you something to chew on, something to think about with the Health Committee. The whole reason the Health Committee was formed is because of this connection between the health of our community and the connection with policing, and how can our healthcare workers and folks involved in healthcare and healthcare adjacent fields really support our community so that in turn we're supporting law enforcement, and how do we work together? So our health committee over time has really stepped back a little bit. We used to do much more than we are currently. And I think a lot of that has to do with capacity since the pandemic. But we're really starting to ramp up a little more and really start to focus on what are some key strategies, takeaways, steps, actionable items that we can work on as a community that will increase access to care and continue to make connections with police department, with other community organizations, so that our community and patients and clients within the healthcare field are getting the best care. So this coming meeting on this coming Tuesday from 11 to 12, we have invited a disability advocate to come and speak. They're going to be talking about how you can advocate for yourself as well as other people within the workforce. Because having a person who has a disability, they have some additional barriers when it comes to accessing healthcare, but also accessing work and what that looks like. I'm really excited to have Ashley joining us, and that is just an example of one of the pieces of a few of the things that we work on that we talk about when we meet together. It's virtual. We'd love to see more people attend. In our breakout session, we set out in the couches and lots of people leave early and gave them a time about it.
Very good.
Right? Like, we're watching it. We see you leave. But we sat down with Rob Willis from the schools, and it was a perfect sort of discussion of we want to talk about substance use for youth and how do we talk to parents so that parents can talk to their kids about substance use. Cannabis is what we talked about. So that's just a general idea of some of the connections that we make in the health committee and how we can work together with some of our healthcare adjacent organizations and even healthcare organizations to work with places like schools to support the community in prevention work or anything like this.
I think that's good.
Appreciate the report outs. So we want to end on a positive note, so I'm going to ask for a story, feel-good story, experience that you've had that you'd like to share with the group, and please don't make me call you out, because I know.
She's hiding in the back.
Richard, are you on your phone, Richard?
I heard there was a thing up at Killington that was really good. Did anyone attend that from around food insecurity and anyone named Sherry?
I won't come anymore. So there was food bank at a food insecurity convention, and in the morning, woke up, told Matt how I didn't want to go. I had my out stories and my phone so I could get to ring if I needed it. And did not want to go, but it was. I mean, they had some storytellers, really good. And then they had some breakouts, which I hate breakouts. So I'm looking at the list and I'm looking down the list and I'm like, how to keep volunteers engaged, and all this other stuff that, you feel like, okay. I sound awful because I'm not a good convention person, but decided I read storytelling, and I figured, you know what, this scares me the most. I should go to this one because at least it'll keep me awake, because I won't want to tell a story. I have to stay, because that's how they call me. But I found it so impressive, and I was so amazed by this woman. I even stayed for the second session, and she told me how to tell a story. And it wasn't like it could be a story about your life network, or it could be about your service, or it could be about anything, but how to keep people involved and keep people there, and how to end, because sometimes I talk too long. So I did ask her if she would come. She's been on CBS. She speaks, around the nation. And she said she would come here for free and do a workshop for everybody. And I think that it would benefit everybody in the room, regardless if you want to talk about your services or if you just have a story you want to tell. It tells you the basic steps and how to move forward through these things and to get your story out there. So I'm really excited. I'm going to talk to her some more and have her come to the meetings and have her share her skills.
Excellent. Thank you.
So just a reminder, we will not be having a meeting in June, and I think that includes the subcommittees as well, is that correct? Will you be having one?
We won't be I don't know about community health, but the, community policing will not.
Okay, great. So, we will see you in July, and thank you all again for your time. And, see you then.